Osaka, the summer of 1615. The greatest army in Japan is closing in for the kill. Then, out of the smoke, comes a wall of red. One unit charging into a force 10 times its size. At its head, a man in a helmet crowned with sweeping antlers, all of it the color of blood. He is not charging to win. He knows the battle is lost. He is charging at one man, Tokugawa Ieyasu, the real warlord behind Toranaga from the series Shogun. And for a few impossible minutes, it works. The most powerful man in Japan prepares for his own death. The man in red is Sanada Yukimura, forgotten on a mountain for 14 years. This is the last hero of the samurai age. To understand that charge, you have to go back to the mountains. Yukimura was born a Sanada, and the Sanada were nobody. A tiny clan of a few thousand wedged into the mountains of Shinano, surrounded on every side by giants, the Takeda, the Wasugi, the Hojo, the Tokugawa. A clan that small should have been crushed and forgotten a dozen times over. Instead, the Sanada became masters of survival. They switched sides without shame, played their enemies against each other, and again outfought armies many times their size. Yukimura's father, Masayuki, was the sharpest of them all. Twice, huge Tokugawa armies marched on the little Sanada Castle at Ueda. Twice, Masayuki humiliated them, bleeding a force of tens of thousands with a handful of men. Yukimura grew up inside this world, often as a hostage, handed between great houses as a living guarantee of his family's loyalty. It taught him early the one lesson the Sanada live by. When you are small, survival is not about strength. It is about reading power exactly. One note before we go on. In his own life, his name was Nobushige. Yukimura, the name the whole world now knows, was given to him later by the storytellers who turned a real man into a legend. In the year 1600, Japan tore itself in two. On one side, Tokugawa Ieyasu and the Eastern Army. On the other, the loyalists of the Toyotomi, the West, the same doomed cause that Ashita Mitsunari would die for. Every clan in Japan had to choose. Choose wrong, and your family died with you. The Sanada made the coldest, cleverest choice of all. They split the family on purpose. Yukimura's elder brother, Nobuyuki, rode east to Tokugawa. Yukimura and his father rode west to the Toyotomi. Whoever won, one Sanada son, would be on the winning side, and the family name would survive, no matter how the country fell. It was survival, refined into an art. And then father and son did something extraordinary. As Ieyasu's main army marched toward the great battle, it had to pass their little castle at Ueda. With a few thousand men, the Sanada held up an army of 38,000 and delayed them so badly that a huge Tokugawa force arrived at the decisive battle too late to fight. It was a masterpiece. It should have made them legends of the winning side. But far away, in a valley called Sekigahara, the West lost anyway. In a single afternoon. And just like that, the brilliant bet had landed Yukimura on the losing half of his own family. By every law of that age, Yukimura should have been executed. He had fought for the losing side. His life was forfeit. What saved him was his brother. Nobuyuki had bled for the Tokugawa, and he begged for his father and brother's lives. Grudgingly, Ieyasu agreed, not freedom, but exile. Yukimura and his father were sent to Kudoyama, a poor village at the foot of a sacred mountain, and told, in effect, to disappear. And there Yukimura stayed for 14 years. Think about that. 14 years. His father grew old and died there, still dreaming of a war that never came. Yukimura's own hair went gray. He grew poor. By some accounts, he made ropes and cords to survive, selling them to get by. A brilliant soldier reduced to a quiet, forgotten craftsman on a hillside. The whole country was moving on without him. The great age of warring states was ending. The Tokugawa were building a peace meant to last forever. and it looked, for all the world, as if the last chapter of the samurai would be written, and that Sanada Yukimura would not be in it at all. Then, in 1614, the past came back. The Tokugawa moved to erase the last thing standing between them and total power. Osaka Castle, the mightiest fortress in Japan, where Hideyoshi's son Hideyori still lived. The very child that Ishida Mitsunari had died trying to protect, now grown to a young man. Around that doomed banner gathered the last free samurai of the age, masterless men, exiles, anyone with a reason to hate the Tokugawa. And down from his mountain, at last, came Sanada Yukimura. 14 years of waiting poured into one final campaign. That winter, he built a fortress of his own against the castle wall, the Sanada Barbican, and from it he tore the attacking Tokugawa armies apart, his one great victory. But the enemy was too vast to beat with walls. A false peace was made. The castle's outer defenses were filled in and destroyed by trickery. By the summer of 1615, the moats were gone, the walls were open, and the cause was finished. Yukimura knew it, so he chose how to end. He dressed his entire unit in red armor, red banners, a deliberate, blazing act of defiance, so that everyone on that field would see exactly who was charging and remember it. He drove straight at Ieyasu's command, broke through, and made the old ruler stare at his own death. But the numbers closed in. Wounded and spent, Yukimura sat down to rest near a small shrine. A common enemy soldier crept up on him. Yukimura, it is said, simply offered his head. "Take it," he told the man, "it will make your name." And with that, the greatest warrior of the age was gone. The next day, Osaka Castle fell. Hideyori died in the flames. The Toyotomi were finished. The Tokugawa peace that followed would last 250 years. By every measure that counts, Sanada Yukimura lost, completely and forever. And yet something strange happened to this particular loser. The general who watched his last charge, the Lord Shimazu, called him the #1 warrior in Japan, the greatest of the entire age. And the storytellers took it from there. Over the next centuries, on the kabuki stage and in the war tales, the real man, Nobushige, the gray exile who twisted rope on a mountain, was reborn as Yukimura, the perfect hero, the loyal underdog who almost toppled a tyrant. Remember Ishida Mitsunari from our last stories? He stayed, he lost, and history made him the villain. Yukimura stayed, he lost the very same cause, and history made him the hero. The difference was not who was right. It was one afternoon in red. And here is the strangest part of all. He spent 14 years forgotten, poor, and erased, and he is remembered 400 years later for the events of a single day. Sometimes a whole life seems to mean nothing, right up until its final hour, and then that hour rewrites everything that came before it. If this story was worth your time, subscribe. Forgotten Japan tells the stories that the famous tales of samurai and shoguns leave out.